Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome Tanya Kell to our meeting today. I'm just going to say a few things I know about you, Tanya, because we've known each other for a few decades. Tanya is a fellow graduate of Pacific Academy, which was in Berkeley at the time, back in the early 90s. We were in the first graduating class together. She's also the president of Nash, the North American Society of Homeopaths, and she directs the Nashville School of Homeopathy. And in addition to all of these wonderful activities, she has also been a volunteer for Homeopaths Without Borders. So that is what we're going to be interviewing her about today. So welcome, Tanya. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about what is Homeopaths Without Borders? Tell us about the organization.
I don't know that much about it. It was started by a group of homeopaths, I believe, when the earthquake happened in 2009. A few people got together, including Karen Allen, who is also a graduate of Pacific Academy. She was in the class after ours and been very active in the homeopathic world. I think she was instrumental in getting it going. There was already an organization formed and had been to a couple of countries, but I think they really found their identity and their footing in going to Haiti. And they just showed up with remedies and started treating people and trying to make connections and set up clinics and see what they could do to help. And over time, they met people who were interested in what they were doing, who had seen some of their results and wanted to see more. And so they created a curriculum and now doing a training program. So I volunteered to teach and be part of the clinic. It's a 90-hour course that they teach. We do 2 days of classroom time and then 3 days of clinic time. So Lauren Fox is their director, and she does most of the teaching. And then we break the students up into groups, and we go to clinics and see clients all day.
Wow.
So the program they designed is for medical professionals. So the people who took the class were mostly MDs and some nurses. They had been teaching to what they call homeopath communicateurs, who were anybody who was interested. So one of our translators became a homeopath. I think that tends to be a common theme amongst people who go to other countries. The translators see the results and hear the homeopathic language and learn the remedies by translating back and forth and often become homeopaths. So people who run orphanages, people who were pastors in their churches, local social workers, that sort of thing. Birth attendants, they were learning homeopathy. And then Homeopaths Without Borders made a connection with a physician who is very dedicated to providing quality health care throughout Haiti. And when he saw what homeopathy could do and that anyone could learn it, he became partners with them and took the first class for doctors and then has helped us with translation and teaching in the second group that we've taught. So I volunteered. I went twice with the first class and 3 times with the second class. So I've gotten to know the students pretty well. And we try to visit a school or an orphanage each time we go and treat as many of the children in one of those places as we can as part of our clinicals while we're there. And it's been rewarding and wonderful. And really, as a teacher, it's just fun because you're teaching people that want to know so much and have such big hearts and care so much about their country and about their patients. And really tap into what it means to be a homeopath. They don't have to be spoon-fed. The books they have are very limited. You know, we gave them a textbook translated into French. We don't speak French. We don't have an organon in French. We don't have any books in French. So they have this one tiny little book designed mostly by Lauren Fox and edited by volunteers from Homeopaths Without Borders. And they see us in action. They see how we treat the patients, how we take our cases, what types of questions we ask, how we describe the patients when we're speaking at the end of the day about our experience. And they glean from that some of the deep kernels of homeopathy that sometimes we struggle to convey to our students. And they just pull it out themselves by self-reflection. And some of the things they say are just make your heart open with joy. This last trip, one of the physicians said, you know, studying homeopathy has increased my humanity. And of course, we tried to convey that that's what being a homeopath entails. When we do our practitioner development lectures, when we do our personal growth lectures, etc., we try to instill that as a core value, as your humanity comes first, and then you're able to hear what needs to be healed in your clients. You're able to resonate with them in a healing manner, etc. And for them to pick it up and pull it from within themselves without us telling them that's what you're supposed to be doing was great. Just made me happy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. That sounds totally wonderful. So you have a translator there with you when you're actually in the classroom with these people, then?
Yes, I speak not one word of French.
Mm-hmm.
Languages are not my forte.
Mm-hmm.
So they found translators, wonderful young men and women that just stick by our side and make sure we know what's going on around us, and help us with private conversation as well as translating for the patients and, you know, in the classroom.
So are you mostly teaching acute homeopathy? I've seen the manual, so I had
Right. So we start there, and it seems so. The case taking is very straightforward. You know, what's the chief complaint? What are the modalities, the concomitants, etiology? So, and then what's the mental emotional state? We do ask that, and is it relevant to what's going on in the picture? So they recognize that there's so much more to homeopathy beyond the acute and the physiological, because when we do take cases in clinic, if it needs to be a full case taking, we do that, and they see us do that, and they see that there's more, and that they need more books, because I can get out the repertory and start flipping through the pages if I need to look something up, and they don't all have repertories. They have materia medicas and are starting to study those. So that's part of their request from us. Keep coming back. Keep reinforcing the materia medica that we know. Keep expanding our remedy knowledge. We're learning by doing, so we want to do clinic over and over and over in every part of the country. Please come out to the countryside, not just into the city, that sort of thing. They really see homeopathy as revolutionizing healthcare in Haiti. That it's so, they call it suave. They're like, we don't have another word for it. Homeopathy is just suave. You know, the results you get are tangible and lasting and easy. The cost is something that Haiti can afford. You know, it's something that really anybody can learn. So Lauren has a vision even to teach out in the countryside to people who may not be literate. So we'll see if we're able to do that.
Yeah. Can you share some examples of kinds of cases that you treat there? And I'd love to hear something about that if you have some off the top of your
Right.
head.
So it is a African descent population, so they have predisposition to high blood pressure and diabetes. For some reason, that the equatorial peoples have that. So that's very common as a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still trying to figure out, how to level our homeopaths up to be able to take that deep of a chronic case. But sometimes if someone's constitutional remedy is clear from something else going on in their body, we let them know that the remedy for the person may help everything. So there is no acute clinicals for high blood pressure and diabetes. And they get that. But we do a lot of musculoskeletal stuff because people work really hard and it's hard on their bodies. They stand all day and they carry heavy things. There's a lot of acute respiratory stuff, colds, flus, fevers, infectious, contagious things. And then a lot of gastritis and digestive problems, and a lot of things that stem from malnutrition. So when we go into the schools, I didn't quite catch on at first that every child that came in to see me was like, I'm tired, I have headaches, my vision gets blurry, and I'm not medically trained, I'm just homeopathically trained, and I couldn't quite put that together, and I knew there was something going on. So I went to Lauren, who's a nurse practitioner, and I said, why is every kid walking through here have this headache and blurry vision and stomach ache? And she said, they're all anemic, they're malnourished. Like, aha. Okay. So that just helped clarify my case taking and what I could and couldn't do. So one of the products that we use a lot in Haiti are the combination of the 12 tissue salts. And Haitians love it. They respond very well to homeopathy. And so since the tissue salts kind of enhance your ability to absorb and assimilate any nutrients that you may be getting, they get pretty profound results just from using the combined cell salts.
I see. What potency do you give them in?
So bioplasma is 6x, yeah.
Right. Wow.
So all
That's
12
great.
cell salts together in the 6x potency.
Yeah.
So the mamas, after they deliver, when we're in the maternity hospital, we try to give them all some cell salts. The pregnant and nursing mothers, and the kids that are just struggling with their nutritional status. It's often helpful.
What else? What other remedies are you giving a lot in those cases of malnutrition? And how do you, what are the, excuse me?
Senna for parasites.
Oh, okay.
So we often run into parasites in the children. And then basilinum. We run into ringworm on the head quite often in the orphanages and schools. So those are pretty simple, straightforward remedies that work a good 80% plus of the time for those clinical conditions. We try not to treat the name, but those are areas where you can. If someone is malnourished, we give them bioplasma. If they have parasites, we usually give them Senna. They know that other remedies may be indicated if the symptoms call for them. If they have ringworm, basilinum pretty much always works. Every once in a while, there'll be a couple kids where it doesn't go away from the basilinum, but it's an over 80% good result.
Wow, fantastic. What kind of potency do you use with the basilinum and the Senna?
We have the kits that they actually put out money and purchase kits. So this is not straight charity, it's a partnership. So the people that take the class put a lot into it and value it greatly. So they get a 30C kit and a 200C kit.
Oh.
And so they choose the potency, they try to assess the vital force, all of that sort of thing. But it's usually single doses of either a 30 or a 200. And they know that if it's a very intense acute case, they can do repeated doses and they can put it in water if they need to, and they catch on to that very quickly as well.
Wow, great. Are there other conditions besides the ringworm and the malnutrition that you were treating? I think you mentioned respiratory stuff and digestive stuff. Do you have remedies that tend to be indicated in those?
They often don't have access to clean water all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of gastritis from contaminated water. And we have found the top remedies to be arsenicum and phosphorus with the burning pains, and, you know, the simple modalities. Is it better with cold water or is it better with hot water?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And then if the most obvious simple remedies with the clear modalities don't show up, dig a little further. Be open to any remedy showing up, depending on what the person has to say. So we did, of course, financial calculations. These are medical professionals. They have to make a living. And how long does it take them to take a case? And how many patients would they need to see in a day in order to sustain their practice? And so how much would they have to charge per patient? And I believe that they are all finding it economically feasible for themselves and for the patients to be able to afford to pay them for their services.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yep.
So it's actually good for the economy in a certain way too, it sounds like, that you're supporting these doctors or medical professionals to add a modality, basically.
Yeah. So, you know, access to medication is difficult sometimes in Haiti, and homeopathic remedies, as we know, a little bit goes a long way. So that takes away the pressures of always having to restock your supply, because, you know, once you get a big bottle, that's going to last you years and years, even if you have a very, very full practice. So that's very exciting to me.
So did you design remedy kits with the remedies that you thought would be most important there? And
the staff of Homeopaths Without Borders did. I was not part of that at all.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And there you have them in 30 and 200C, I think you mentioned, right? Yeah. How many remedies? Do you know how many remedies are in those kits?
Is it 60 remedy kit? Something like
Okay.
that. So yeah, whatever's in the book, that's what's in the book.
Great, because you can really do a lot. I think that's something good for people to understand who are thinking about going out and, you know, really trying to help in some kind of community that has those kind of needs, whether it's a low-income community in the United States or international community, is that you can do a lot, sounds like, with even just 60 remedies.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the maternity hospital, we started very simply. We just gave all of the nurses a bottle of Arnica 200C as they entered their studies. And they used that first, and that made such a difference in the outcomes in their patients. They both see people at home and in the maternity hospital, and being able to immediately see that the health and comfort of the women was improved just from that one, knowing that one medicine made them also very excited to know more.
Wow, that is so great. I'm so glad to hear it.
They're practical and results oriented. There's all you have to do is show them a successful case, and they're on board.
Yeah.
So,
how about infectious diseases? I think you mentioned that as well. Have you treated any epidemic diseases or malaria?
No, I was not there for the chikungunya epidemic or the cholera epidemic. Other people from Homeopaths Without Borders were. They were very successful in their treatment. I don't think they have published their results yet, but I believe they're putting together a paper with the results. And the doctor who is our main contact there was treated for chikungunya and was
Mm,
amazed at how
mm,
quickly he got better because he was so sick and
mm,
in so much pain, and how
mm,
just two tiny little sugar pellets
mm.
wiped it out. And
Wow.
so he loves to tell the story of his own recovery from that.
What was
Uh,
the remedy? Do you remember? I don't remember what.
Euphorium perfoliatum,
Oh, okay.
which
Wow.
very often in mosquito-borne illness.
Hmm.
It was one of the top remedies in the hantavirus epidemic that happened in the Native American community here in the U.S.
Hmm.
And it's, of course, a top flu remedy,
Yeah,
etc. So it shows up around the world in many different contexts.
that's fascinating.
Yep.
Wow.
And phosphorus has been very useful in Haiti. The the general personality of a Haitian, maybe it's just an islander, I don't know. I haven't traveled the world enough to know for sure.
Hmm.
But lovely, welcoming, um,
Hmm.
friendly, kind people. So it's kind of the national remedy, phosphorus.
Cool. Just like we all need Nux vomica here in the US, right? Yeah, great. Okay. So, what else, what other kinds of conditions? Are there other things that you've been
Yeah,
treating?
so we do see malaria.
Mhm.
We were in an area that was having typhoid. We didn't test the patients that came in with fevers in that particular area, whether it was typhoid or not. We just treated it as febrile illness. Um, but homeopathy works so quickly that that was very convincing for some of the medical staff, because we could ask mothers with sick children after we gave the remedy, go sit in the waiting room and come back in an hour and let's make sure that your child is okay. And
Mm,
they would, and it would be dramatically better. And so
mm,
that really imprinted that, yes, homeopathic medicines are extraordinarily powerful
mm.
and helpful. And the resilience of the human body um, really comes through when you get a good remedy. It just bounces back right in front of your eyes.
Wow, wonderful. Now, as you know, I'm sure two of our teachers, Jeremy Cher and Richard Pitt, are in Africa doing similar work and also have amazing stories. Are you in communication with them? And are there contrasts or anything you've kind of learned by?
Well, I of course follow Jeremy and watch the posts, and I'm very excited about the amazing work that he has done in Africa. But no, the two organizations don't communicate or work together yet.
Mhm,
Um, but we're certainly aware of his work.
mhm.
And like I said, all of his translators turn into homeopaths, so we're having similar experience where
Yeah, yeah.
the local people come to help us, or maybe they came just for a job, but
Mhm.
come to see the positive impact that the homeopathy makes in their communities and want to be part of it.
Great.
So
Now, are homeopaths without borders in other countries besides Haiti?
they have been in the past, but no,
Mm,
since the earthquake, that's the only place that they've been going.
okay, and this may not be a fair question because you weren't there, but do you know much about what happened during the earthquake when Homeopaths Without Borders first went there? What remedies were given and how that all worked?
Aconite, arnica, all of the ignatia,
Hmm.
um, yeah, staphysagria, burns, cuts, wounds, broken bones.
Hmm.
It was mostly acute stuff.
Yeah, so it really is the kind of thing that somebody with some acute training would really be able to help with, it sounds like.
Yep.
If there is a disaster again like that in some part of the world, which is likely.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So after the fires out in California, homeopaths, even weeks later, they still used a lot of aconite and arnica for other people who were still, shocked and devastated from what had happened in their community.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. So you Anything else about the doctors, and what are these allopathic doctors that you were training,
Hmm. Yep.
basically?
Yep. So they have allopathic practices. Some of them have their own clinics. Some of them work for the government. Several of them collaborate with NGOs and work under their auspices.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes presents a bit of a complication for them. In their own private practices, they're very enthusiastic about integrating as much homeopathy as they possibly can as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So they always try to find a homeopathic remedy first.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't figure it out, they don't have enough knowledge, they feel that allopathic medicine is needed, then they use it as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're working for the government or an NGO, often there's someone up above that doesn't know what homeopathy is and doesn't let them use it.
Oh,
They're
okay.
experiencing some of the same frustrations that go on around the world, where you
Mm-hmm.
know that it's um, not going to cause harm and
Mm-hmm.
could very well solve the problem simply and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And someone in the higher up might say, no, you can't use homeopathy. We ran into that in the women's hospital, where one of the physicians won't allow the nurses to use homeopathic remedies when he's on the floor. So they use it when he's not there.
Wow. Still sounds a little bit easier than in the United States, so that's
Right.
good.
Yeah,
Oh,
fortunately at that hospital, there was an administrator that was very open-minded. Said,
mm,
anything that will help, I'm willing to see what happens. And he
mhm.
heard the positive feedback from his head nurse and continues to be supportive.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for those tips. That's really fascinating and just so wonderful to be in an environment where homeopathy is able to, where you can really practice very freely and see results right in, in those kinds of cases. Let me check in and see if there are any questions. Do either Cindy or Lauren, do you have any questions? You can unmute yourself.
No questions right now. This has been very interesting to me.
Okay, great. How about you, Cindy? Do you have any questions?
Often do you usually go down?
When they're teaching the class, they do one weekend every other month. And we've just finished we graduated our second group of medical professionals. And their request for us in future is to do clinics out in the countryside first and get them together and continue their clinical education, get them more confident in using homeopathy, get them to know their remedies better, because there's so much that can be done. We try to teach them the polycrests: sulfur, nux vomica, lycopodium, calcarea, phosphorus, pulsatilla, natrimur, the remedies we all know well, staph aureus, breast tox. So they're starting to see that a polycrest remedy, what that means and how it's adaptable to so many different conditions, on those simple indicators of, etiology, modality, organ of affinity or system of affinity, that sort of thing. So they've requested just more reinforcement in seeing and recognizing remedy pictures. They recognize the need for healthcare to reach out into the countryside, that, um, you know, find that we're in the cities and we're teaching doctors that have practices in the cities, but Haiti is more than Port-au-Prince, and people out in the countryside really need access to medical care. So the big request while we were there last time is, please come back and do mobile clinics out into the countryside. And so that is going to be our focus in fundraising to be able to do that, and gathering clinicians to go and do that with them, partner with them to do that. And then there will be more people interested in taking the professional class again. So we're trying to train them to be able to teach the class themselves. They're pretty close to being able to do that. As with any new student, they're like, no, don't make us do it ourselves. Stay, come back, we're doing this right. But they have a WhatsApp group where they can discuss their cases together. They have a small library, and certain homeopaths pick up on certain remedies more clearly than others. There's somebody that never misses a calc carb case, and someone who always recognizes a cali carb case, or so hopefully they can continue to teach each other. They're still working on creating their Haitian Homeopathic Association, but they really enjoyed having me as president of an association of professionals to come and tell them how valuable that was, and what advocacy for the profession looks like in the US, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I do have one question. Can you tell us, do you have an anecdotal story of one of the biggest surprises that happened, or?
They weren't my cases, but there certainly was a very dramatic turnaround in a case of two sisters with epilepsy. One of the doctors sent two of his patients from the north of the country into town to consult with Lauren, and they were in their 20s and had never been able to work, had to be with their mother all the time in case they had seizures. Family, of course, could never afford seizure medication. It's expensive as it is and has to be taken continually, and that's just not feasible for most families in Haiti. So to have a homeopathic remedy nearly cure their seizures after a single dose, they were able to work, they were able to be independent within a couple of months of starting homeopathy. So we don't have long-term cure yet, but we're about 6 months into it, and so far the report is good, that these young women may be able to lead normal lives now.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, that was really wonderful. And then with the fevers again, have a child listless and barely conscious and shallow breathing, and just jump up after a very short period of time and run around the consulting room and be fine and on their way. That was very convincing to the students.
Was there malaria? Was that why the kids were listless?
We weren't sure if it was typhoid or malaria or some other febrile thing, because we weren't doing testing. But that was in a neighborhood where they said typhoid was present at that time.
Great, thank you.
How do you get remedies into the country, and what pharmacies are you working with?
Standard Homeopathic has been very generous. Hahnemann Pharmacy has been a supplier of the remedy kits, and Washington Homeopathic has also given us a ton of remedies. Boiron has been generous as well. They give Optique, and calendula and arnica gels, as well as remedies. So each of the trained homeopaths has their own kit, right, in the 30 and 200. And there's also a very large backup stock with hundreds of remedies that are not in the kit, and then duplicates of some of the most used remedies. So they've been well supplied by the generosity of the pharmacies here in the US.
Oh, good. Great. Okay.
Yeah, so they're interested in making their own pharmacy and being independent. Haiti is often looked upon as a needy nation, a place that runs on charity, etc. But they've got some of the most hardworking and resourceful people in the world, and they want to learn how homeopathic remedies are made, stored, used, and create their own pharmacy and keep their own supply going.
When you go, how long do the volunteers go for each time?
Typically, it's a week. When we were teaching the birth attendance class and the foundations in homeopathy class, we stayed 2 weeks.
Okay. All right, so if somebody was going to volunteer, they would be thinking about a time frame of 1 or 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay, yeah, because that's much more doable than thinking about going and spending months in a foreign country. But that's wonderful. Now, how did you prepare for your trip yourself, considering you were going to be going into this place with a lot of infectious diseases and things like that?
Back to my bag.
Right, okay. Did you do any prophylaxis for any of the infectious diseases or anything like that?
Nope.
No, okay. Well, I lived in Indonesia for 8 years and never did any prophylaxis either of any kind. I was fine
Right.
most of the time. So, yeah. Okay. Well, this is really fascinating. Do we have any other questions from Cindy or Lauren?
No other questions from me at this time.
Okay. Yeah, well, I find this incredibly inspiring. So thank you for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to say about Nash, since you mentioned about professional organizations? Since we're here and we're all interested
Right.
in Nash, we're school as a member and our students are, somewhat active. But what can you
So
tell us
it's
about
a
Nash?
way to communicate with each other if there's a sort of a central hub that everyone kind of plugs into now and again. It's a way to know what's going on within the homeopathic profession in your own country. It's a way for your country to be represented in other places. So when I went to New Zealand, I met with the head of their Society of Homeopaths, and we climbed a volcano together and had a great day, And so by having a professional organization, number one, it shows you that you care enough to consider yourself professional, that you do it as a vocation, that it is a legitimate vocation that's around the globe, that you have peers in every country that really have a common philosophy, speak a common language, and can relate to each other on a deep and important level. So it just connects you to the greater whole to be part of your professional organization. It also gives us a louder voice when there are controversies. When the FDA first started looking into regulating homeopathic remedies further, I was one of the people that went and spoke on behalf of homeopathy and homeopaths. And it worked out very well because Peggy O'Mara, who represents 80,000 holistic moms, spoke first and said, I have my home remedy kit, and when I don't know what to do, I look to a professional to guide me. And then I came on next. I represent the professionals that take care of the next level of care beyond figuring it out yourself at home. And we have standards and ethics and educational standards and all of this stuff. We don't just pull it out of a box.
Right, very great. Any Nash news, anything in particular that Nash is working on right now that you'd like to share with us?
We're working on, with everybody else, better communication, better cohesiveness between the states, between the different organizations. Different organizations have different goals and different demographics that they represent, but it's good for all of us to know what everybody's doing. Working on the right message, the right language, the accurate representation of what homeopathy actually is and what a homeopath actually is and does. Because there's the information age. People get information overload. And homeopathy is actually very simple, very straightforward, very consistent, and should be easily comprehensible to pretty much everybody if it's well communicated. So we're working on that as a homeopathic community.
Great. Well, thank you, Tanya. It's been very inspiring, and certainly for the students who are watching this, I would encourage everybody to get involved with Nash. And Nash has been around for quite a long time, since back in the 90s when you and I were starting practice, right? Is that when Nash started?
Yep. let's see, we started school in 1990.
Yes, yes, we did.
So Nash was formed in 89, maybe.
Oh, okay. So it was around even then. Okay. Wow. So it's a quite established organization, and they put on calls every month, and we do have our student rep who is communicating with our students and keeping everybody abreast about what's going on with Nash. So thank you so much for joining us, Tanya.
Thank
And
you for having me.